We're here today to talk about growing garlic. My name's Julian Odering, and I've grown garlic now for a few seasons, and I've had a few failures, but I think I've got it pretty much right now how to do it. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I do to have a good successful crop of garlic. Before we start, garlic is a wonderful vegetable. It's actually very good for boosting immunity in your body. It's good for as an antioxidant. It's actually very good for controlling problems with your heart, like high cholesterol, if you have kidney heart disease. It's also very good as for improving eyesight and a few other things. And they reckon if you eat 2 cloves of garlic a day, you might live to be a very long age. The only problem is that nobody will probably want to be around you. That's the only thing. So we're going to get started. There's two main types of garlic. There's your soft neck type and your hard neck type. Now we're going to be talking about soft neck types today. And the soft neck basically is exactly what it says. When it comes up from the for the stem, it's generally, if it's a hard neck, it's really quite tough up here. Whereas your soft neck ones, like we're going to talk about today, this is Tessa garlic, and the other one is Printanor, which is this one here, which is also a soft neck, can be grown quite comfortably in Christchurch conditions. Now, generally the hard neck types are better for cooler conditions, but they have less cloves and they don't keep so well, but they are quite big cloves, but less of them. Whereas the soft neck types grow extremely well in Christchurch, so we're going to talk about these ones mostly today. I've got this one here. This is a Tessa garlic, and this is actually grown in North Canterbury, exclusive to Oderings, and it's a very flavoursome, pungent tasting garlic. Much more flavour than the Printanol. So to grow garlic well, it's much better to start off in April. This is the 9th of April today, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm going to show you how we actually do our bulbs. I call it a bulb because it's a cluster. Then after that, these little cloves come off as independent ones, and these are what we're going to plant. So it's now April. This is a 6 to 8 month crop, and it will flower, it'll juice around about the longest day, when the bottom leaves start yellowing off a little bit. So when the bottom leaves yellow off a little bit around the base of the plant, that's when it's ready to harvest on all sorts of garlics. Right, what we're going to be doing today is separating these cloves, and I'll start here so you can see. So we start picking these off like this, and you start off at the top of the garlic, and you just pull them off like that in individuals, and you sometimes just rub it around in your fingers and they come off quite easily. If you can, it doesn't matter, you leave the paper on or off, but I usually take it off so I can actually see what I'm doing better, because we don't want to rub that so hard that's going to damage the cloves. So basically they should all pop off pretty easily and divide pretty easily like that, and you take it down until you come to that kind of one there, and then you just take that off there. Now on a garlic clove, you've got your basal plate, which is here, where the roots will come out, and the top piece here is where the stem will come out. When you plant, you've got to make sure you plant it the right way up. If you plant it the other way, they don't orientate very well, and you will almost certainly lose them if you have the root to the top. So make sure you always plant the basal plate to the bottom. That is discarded at the time, so that's all good. Today we're going to be using 2 different types of mixes. We're going to be using a fruit and veggie mix, which I have over here, and we're going to be using compost. And with the compost, I'm going to mix a bit of Total Replenish with it, and the Total Replenish will give us enough food to last through to the life of the crop, which is around about mid-December, and so we'll get plant up in 2 different lots. What we'll do with this today is we'll get them planted, and then we will actually see how well they do in 2 different soils, and we'll take time-shot photography right the way through the growing season, and we will look at pests and diseases. We will also look at, like, the biggest problem we have is rust, of course, on garlic, so it's really important that we plant them far apart, and we start early, as I said, which is also going to help with controlling the rust on garlic. Right, I'll grab a tray. Okay, it's very important when you're planting garlic to go for a well-drained, well-fertilised mix. So as I said before, we're going to be using compost. The because compost has got quite a high alkalinity, around about 7, and the fruit and veggie mix is about the same. It's already got fertilisers in it, but we're going to be putting extra fertilisers with the compost to give us what we need through the growing season. Now, with all composts and everything, make sure you use them fresh from the garden centre, because if you have them stored in your shed, that's when you can get a build-up of Legionnaire's disease. So it's very important to use them fresh. But we're going to put a mask on. Anyway, this is a simple mask because Legionnaire's could be prevalent anywhere. So without further ado, put the mask on and start. Okay, here we have our compost. Just open up the top. We're going to put a nice lot of compost in there. Garlic are pretty shallow rooted, so they probably need kind of about 200 mils of soil. So whether you're using pots or whether you're using bulb crates or whether you're using raised beds, it's still the same principle. So then we spread that soil out like so. Now this is compost, so it's really a soil conditioner, but because it's got such a nice friable soil, we're going to titivate it up a bit with a bit of fertiliser. So what I use is Total Replenish, which is this stuff here. This has a controlled release fertiliser and a slow release fertiliser. So this will do it for the life of the crop. And we're also going to use a bit of bone flour. And what that does is that encourages microbial action in the soil, adds a bit of calcium, and it also gives the bulbs a good start. So with the Total Replenish, what we're going to do is we're going to use one good sized handful here. And we sprinkle that around. And that is about 50 grams, and that's ample for all we need. And we're going to use a bit of bone flour, and again possibly about the same amount. Right, then what we want to do is totally dig that over, dig it in. So you can, a garden fork is really good, or a hand fork, and you blend that in nicely. So the bone flour will add a wee bit of nitrogen and calcium, and it's very, very bulbs or cloves like garlic absolutely love it. As I said, those roots will go down to about 200 mils, so we want to fertilise the top of it down to about 200 mils. Then we spread that across, and we're ready to plant. Now, with garlic, it doesn't like competitors. So what we do is when we plant it, we want to plant it by itself, and we want to plant it with plenty of room between it, because that way it doesn't have to compete with the sides of the tray. So you want about 50 mils out from the edge of the trays all the time. And in this one here, I'd probably plant around about 15. So we'll get started on that. Now, before we were ready to plant these, I actually separated them, and first of all I put them in this here, which is a fish fertiliser with trace element mix, which was a seaweed as well, and I left them in there for about 3 hours at the prescribed rate, which is 30 mils per litre. Then I use hydrogen peroxide at 3% and 3 to 1, and I soak them for 30 minutes. Then after that I wash those cloves off again. Okay, so here we have the cloves over here, and we're ready to plant. When you do start planting, or once they've been soaked, try not to let them dry them out too much, because that has already started the growing process on these. Now, already you can see with some of these, the roots have started to grow. So when you start planting, generally you want to plant 100 mils, or 50 mils away from the side, but 100 mils if you can right around it, so it's got plenty of room to grow. So you get your clove, and you really start planting. So, and when you plant, you want to plant about 50 mils deep. So I'm planting right up to here on my finger. 1, 2. Some people plant them shallower. I like to plant them so as when they've been planted, they are under the soil. Start up here on this one. And make sure, there's the basal plate there where the roots are starting to grow. We plant it right down to about there. And again, you can see which way, there's where the root is, and there's where the growing tip's going to be. So here's the next one. And if you can, it's always best to plant the bigger cloves, because the bigger cloves will make a much bigger garlic bulb at the end of it. So the bigger they are, the better. And once that's done, we're ready then just to spread this out over the top. If you wish to, you could plant them a wee bit deeper than that. But that's basically what I do. Okay, now that's planted, what we really want to do now is we need to keep those corms nice and cool, watered, and we don't want weeds coming, because as I said before, they do not like competition, so weeds are not good. They like to be growing by themselves. So we use a nice generous amount of pea straw, or barley straw. I think this is barley straw actually, and we put it over the top. This is used for strawberries as well. Just like that. And because we want to know when we plant it, we use a label and make sure we put a label in it saying what it is, when it was planted. So this is garlic tessa and compost and TR, which is of course total replenish. And we'll put that in there. Sometimes you can label both ends of the tray if you wish, so just in case you might lose one. Put a fair bit on, and those garlic cloves will pop up through that when they're ready. So just put a wee bit on there like that, and that also keeps the worst of the cold frosts off it a wee bit when it starts growing as well. Now you can use other things like leaf mulch if you wish, but if you use the leaf mulch, make sure as those tips come through, you might have to clear them off, because leaf mulch can pack down very, very hard. And also it's very, very important, whatever you use as a mulch, make sure it's free of weed killers. Like some pea straws may have weed killers on them, and certainly leaf mulch may have weed killers on them as well. So make sure they're free of weed killer when you do it, because you don't want to go to all that trouble and have problems with that. Now this process I'm doing here is the same if it's in the open garden or in a raised bed or a container such as pots. It's all the same principle. Keep them spread well out and plant them nice and deep, so they've got a good chance to start growing. Try the fruit and veggie mix as a comparison to the compost and fertiliser to see which one actually does the best. Now, as I said before, you want good drainage. See that there? That drainage is very, very good for getting rid of excess water. That's the other good thing about containers, is they're up off the ground, so the water runs away a lot better. Now this has complete fertiliser in it, so we're not going to put any total finish, we're just going to leave it as is. And we don't want to do it above there, because otherwise all the soil will fall out. Okay, right, we're ready to start planting again. So we've got it all nicely spread out. Some people can firm it down a wee bit. I generally don't worry about it too much, but we'll try doing it on this one. We'll firm this one down, see if it makes a difference. But generally I find garlic having such a fine root, it needs nice soft soil to grow in. So, ready to plant again. So again, we're going to pick the biggest corms we've got, or biggest cloves we've got. That's just sprouted since last night. That's how quick that's come away. So again, 100 mils out from this sides roughly. Again, pick the upright. You can quite see easier to see the base from the top. Oh, that one's split as I did it. So another one in. Take one out. So pick your biggest ones first. That's a nice one. It's a funny sort one, but try it anyway. Again, another one that sprouted quite a bit just since last night. Right, just make sure those tips are down far enough that when you cover them over, they're going to be under the soil. Okay, that's all good. Because pea straw is quite cheap and it's quite effective as well as a mulch. Spread that out a bit more. Now mulching isn't compulsory, but just gives them a bit of protection from the harshness of the sun. You still get some really nice days, keeps them cool and gets them a better start in life. So this is Tessa again. This is fruit and veggie, sown on the 9th of the 4th. Okay, now we make sure we give those a really good watering in before we put them to where they're going to go. And when they do go somewhere, they need to go somewhere in nice full sun, because it's going to get very cold in the winter and they do like as much sun as they can possibly get through the winter months. So you want to give them a good start by, if you've got raised beds already, plant your garlic in the ones preferring the most sun through the winter months. If you've got containers, it's quite easy because somewhere around your house there'll be a microclimate, and you can put those in the hottest part of your house or the warmest part of your, outside your house. So that's good. If you're doing the principal type, they're smaller, but the same principle applies. You plant them probably not quite so deep, but they will also break up very easily. I find Principal a wee bit more milder tasting, whereas a Tessa is actually better. Now as they grow, what you do there is you make sure if you see any rust coming in them, you can spray them with this stuff here, which is an inoculant, which will help the boost the immunity of the plants, and it does have, that's the best way of trying to control diseases. And also you can use hydrogen peroxide, and if you do spray it on, just wash off the leaves later on if you are getting a bit of rust. You don't want rust coming on these plants because they affect the yield, they affect the plant, and you won't have as much success if you have a lot of garlic rust. That's again the reason why we plant them plenty of space apart, and so they don't have any competition in a well drained, well fertilised soil. Right, now we're giving them a good watering in. On that first watering in, we want to get it so as the water hits the bottom of the bulb crate. So we're giving it a really good soaking. This is a barley straw, or the Tui strawberry straw. There might be the odd weed comes up in it, but you just have to weed it as you go. And this is pea straw. They're both garlic Tessa. garlic chester is growing in North Canterbury by growers up there. I'm not sure if they mulch or not, but chester grows very comfortably in Canterbury conditions, and it becomes recommended because of its strong taste. It's just starting to run out the bottom of the tray now, by the looks of it. Now they'll be quite heavy, so be careful when you lift them with your back. Keep your knees straight so you don't damage your back. No point doing that. This same principle can be done on, as I said, raised beds, pots, containers. Just remember the principle always remains the same. Oh, that's pretty good. And keep them nice and wet. I probably water them in April I probably water them once every 4 days, three or 4 days. Seeing what the weather's doing. If it rains on, of course, don't worry about watering them. It should be fine.